Get back in control with Off the Wagon, adventures in emotional eating, health, and weight loss. Each episode containing fork-sized mindset tweaks, perspective shifts, and lifestyle hacks to get you back on the wagon. Whether it's habit change, emotional eating, addictions, weight loss, willpower, or relationships, there's something here for you. So let's get on the wagon and get down the road to your goals with me, Christy R. Hall. Welcome to episode 48 of Off the Wagon. As we move into the last few days before Thanksgiving and the last few weeks of the year, this highly stressful time for many can cause panic, overeating, and even over-drinking or over-medicating for many of us. We know about the many pressures of the holidays to create the perfect food, to buy the perfect presents, and to have the perfect experiences. But for some, there's also this need to impress, wow, and even astound those that we haven't seen in a while. Usually, we aim to do this through the changes that we've been working so hard to manifest. This may take the form of searching for the perfect clothes to wear that accentuate all you've released while enhancing all that remains in an attempt to garner some positive and uplifting compliments from friends and loved ones. For others, this need to impress will look more like a desire to obtain others' respect and admiration as we adhere to a super strict regimen, attempting to display some sort of almost godlike control over ourselves and our baser impulses, becoming more and more self-righteous with each uttered no or no thank you. This is often done under the guise of setting an example for others, though most of the time this lesson is lost on the would-be learners who just end up feeling judged themselves. And even a few more will restrict and deprive themselves in the days and weeks leading up to a get-together only because they know that they will leave all the rules and guidelines behind in an attempt to camouflage themselves or to fit in, or even to just fly in under the radar and avoid scrutiny. And so, this topic brings up for me a difference that I wanted to help you get clear on today. And that's the difference between willingness and willfulness. We're willing, we say, to spend hours searching for the perfect little black dress so that people will compliment us, or he will eat his heart out, or they will stop giving us a hard time about our weight. We're willing to not allow anything delicious or delectable or sinful or bad, keeping in mind that I don't really believe in sinful or bad foods, to cross our lips in order that they will see our great willpower and determination. We say that we're willing to diet like a madman before the holidays so that we can let loose at the holidays and avoid the scrutiny and questions of, so what diet are you on now? So when we talk about things like releasing excess weight or unwanted weight, we're willing to go on a diet to release it. And in that, we enter into this unspoken agreement of expectation. We are willing as long as it works, as long as we can release 5 pounds a week. We're willing to give up dairy or bread or sugar or colas or whatever is asked of us, as long as the diet or plan provided by some guru actually delivers. Of course, as soon as it proves to be a little bit more difficult than we planned, or the return on investment is less than we anticipated, then we struggle to hold up our end of the bargain as well. What's really interesting to me, however, is this idea we have that we're willing. Our actions, our attitudes suggest otherwise. Our attitudes say that we're being forced. Our actions say that we're doing it, but we're doing it begrudgingly. There's no joy in it. And the telltale sign that ultimately we're not truly willing is that there's a trade, a negotiation around it. This is not willing, but willful. Through force of will, we will give it up. We will neglect. We will deprive ourselves of whatever it is that we want, if the price is right. We will use all of our will, also known as willpower, to hold ourselves to an arbitrary set of rules and guidelines that promise the outcome we want the most: health, resolution of health concerns, greater mental clarity, whatever it is. But there's a distinct difference between willfully doing something and a willingness to do something. Willful has the sense of force behind it. There's a feeling that if it's not going the way we want, we will make it go the way we want. Sheer brute force, strong arming it, elbow grease. If it's not working, try harder, ratchet down more, get stricter. Willful can be summed up like this: I'll do this if you make me. On the other hand, willingness has a sense of offering to it. Something similar to a feeling of gifting or sacrifice. There's less of a contract about it. It's not about an exchange or a trade. In fact, most of the time, willingness comes without any promise of a return on investment, which makes it sound somewhat negative. But where willingness gains points over willfulness is in its ease of execution. When you willfully do something, anything, there's a certain amount of resistance built into the activity. It's going to be a bit of a struggle, and you're going to be fighting yourself for control. When you are willing, there's less resistance. There's ease. Sometimes there's even a joy to the giving. And this applies to everything, really, not just weight release. Think about the holidays for a second. If you're the person in charge of making Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, you may make it because you feel like you have to, and maybe you do, and you don't really want to. And that makes all the preparation that much more difficult. That makes every missed thank you feel like a knife in your back. It makes everyone around you feel like ingrates. When you willfully make Thanksgiving dinner, you may need the praise of how good the meal is, or acknowledgement of your efforts, and even a thank you or two as payment, trade, or in exchange for your efforts. When you are willing to make Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner for your family, the feeling around it changes. You do it because you love them or in service to them. You would do it whether they appreciated it or not. Willingness changes the effort into a gift. And while a thank you or some form of acknowledgement is appreciated, it's not required. And so there are a lot of things that you may do in your life under the guise of being willing that are actually willful efforts instead. Things that you do with an expectation of an outcome. Most often, the expected payment is a simple acknowledgement or a thank you. But understanding that those things aren't gifts or offerings or things that you do out of love. If you're expecting a thank you or an acknowledgement, then you're expecting some sort of payment. And if you're expecting some sort of payment, then it's a transaction, a service, a contract. And is that really what you want or intend when you decided to give the gift or make the dinner or do the thing for someone? Are you only willing to do it if there's some sort of payment? So, circling back to how this applies to our eating habits and our choices of dietary lifestyle, when you think about your plan to go vegan or do raw or keto or even eat intuitively or using normal principles, what payments have you built into your plan that are unspoken? You say that you're willing to try intuitive eating, but is that only as long as you don't gain additional weight? Are you willing to go raw or vegan or give up gluten as long as your health concerns resolve, or you release weight, or your irritable bowel clears up? You say that you're willing, but this is actually willful. What happens if you don't get the payment or the return you were expecting? When you willfully do something and do not get the returns or results that you want, you stop doing the thing. You stop efforting because there's no payment for it. When you are willing to do something, it doesn't matter if you receive any payment or return for your efforts. You will do it anyway. And you will continue doing it because you want to, or you believe in it, or you love them, or you love yourself, or what have you. So as we move forward into the holiday season, in an effort to create more ease and flow around your efforts, and I mean all of your efforts, right? Making dinners, decorating your home, buying gifts, and yes, even choosing how you will navigate the holidays physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. I want to ask you to take a moment and look for those unspoken expected payments. What are you doing willfully, expecting even the smallest amount of payment or acknowledgement for? Then think for a moment what you would do different if that payment didn't come, wasn't made, or wasn't even offered. Would you still do it? More importantly, can you find a place in this situation where it is okay to not get the payment? Can you move forward into Thanksgiving making dinner out of love and in service to your family with no expectations? Can you purchase armloads of Christmas gifts and presents for others simply because you want them to have those items or gifts, even if you get nothing in return? Are you willing to make this choice for your body, and I mean to give up sugar or gluten or dairy or go vegan, whatever it is that you're considering doing, because you think it's the right thing to do for your body or your health, regardless of how and if your body pays you back? I think this is an interesting exercise because it very quickly puts things into perspective for us. I mean, let's evaluate this. Am I willing to restrict my calories to 800 per day, which I'm not suggesting you do, but many women attempt, and even lower, even if I don't release this unwanted weight? Am I willing to learn to eat intuitively, even if I don't release this unwanted weight? Or even if I gain more unwanted weight? Am I willing to choose this dietary lifestyle and accept its restrictions, even if I get none of the changes it promises? Chances are you said no. Not only no, but hell no. I'm not willing to do that if there's not a payoff. Who the hell are you kidding? And that's the difference between willful and willing. Willful is with the expectation of payment. Willing is out of kindness, compassion, or love. So the assignment or mission for you today, should you choose to accept it, is to look at the things that you say that you're willing to do and search for that unspoken but still expected payment or payoff. When you find that area where you are more willful than willing, See if you can modify your intentions or your efforts in a way that allows you to be more willing about it. If you're not willing to do those things without some form of exchange or payment, what are you willing to do? Especially when it comes to your body or emotional eating, you may find yourself thinking nothing. And that's okay. In fact, that's fine, because what you get there is clarity about your situation and your desires. That tells you that it's not really quite as important to you as you would think or have been telling yourself. And for those things that aren't quite as important as you think they are, perhaps it's time to let those things go and get on with the things that really are important to you. And I want to be clear here. There are lots of things in life that no matter how hard you try to change your perspective on them, you can't really make the shift from willful to willing. And that's okay. I don't think that everything in life must be willing. But I think that looking at your life through this lens of willingness versus willfulness may help you to gain perspective. As an example, prior to using this lens on my own life, I thought that I was doing most of the things I did out of the goodness of my heart, or to be considerate, and under the guise of just trying to help. But when I started looking at each effort, each chore, each thing on my to-do list, 9 times out of 10, I found that there was an unspoken expectation of payment, acknowledgement, or exchange. I cleaned the house so that they would notice. I made dinner so they would say thank you. I took care of the bills and the chores and the yard, or what have you, so that they would appreciate me and all that I do. The problem is that when you do things with the expectation of acknowledgement or exchange or thank you, and then you don't get it, then you feel unappreciated and taken advantage of. Your efforts feel diminished and not really worth it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be appreciated. In fact, everyone could use a little more appreciation, I think, even if it's your job to do what you're doing. But rather, when you only do it for the praise or the accolades or that someone else will notice and compliment you, you cut yourself off from the most important source of those feel-good emotions, you. Would you do these same things if no one else was around? If there was no one to appreciate or compliment or comment? If there was no one to say thank you or good job or you look great, would you still put yourself through all the restrictions? Would you still deprive yourself of that slice of pumpkin or pecan pie? Would you still purchase the expensive dress? Or would you just show up in yoga pants and a flowing shirt? Because if what you're willing to do is determined by who all knows, who's watching, and other people's judgment, then it's likely that it's really more willfulness and something you think you should be doing rather than something that you are willing and want to do. Ultimately, when we shift from willfulness to willingness and from shoulds to wants, we find less stress and more ease, a place of grace and compassion. And I think that we could all use a little more of that at the holidays. So I really appreciate you for listening in today. I appreciate all of your efforts and everything that you do for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for the world. I hope that this has been helpful for you today. If you have any questions or want to talk to me about the differences between willfulness and willingness, I would love to talk to you. You can find me on Facebook at fb.me/Coach Christy R. Hall or at my website, www.christyrhall.com. Thanks so much for listening. and I'll talk to you soon.